We're making a rustic vintage carnival sign from scrap wood, and it lights up. Welcome to Up All Night DIY. I'm Monica. Thanks for joining me. I'm hanging with my good buddies, Dawn of Shabby Meets Bling and Shelly of Repurposed My Way. These talented ladies are hosting the Rustic Wednesday But on Saturday collaboration. You'll find links to their channels as well as the playlist in the description box. Right, we got a lot to do, so let's get into it. I had this piece of pine scrap wood in my wood pile. I cut it to 2 feet wide and it's about 9 1/4 inches high. The first thing I'm going to do is apply 2 coats of Ceramcoat Primary Red. This is just a regular old craft paint. You know, the brand that I like to use the most. I'm also going to paint the edges. Once the red paint is dry, I used some painter's tape to make stripes. As I was taking cold medicine at the time, I did not realize that the painter's tape was actually a little more than 2 inches wide, so I don't get even stripes. But you know what? It's not so bad. It's wonky, but I was wonky at the time. I used a small piece of the tape as a spacer to mark out where the next stripe would go. You'll see the very last stripe is a little narrow compared to the other ones. I pounced a layer of Mod Podge over the tape with a cosmetic sponge. This will help ensure crisp lines, and it should prevent any paint getting underneath the tape. The tape usually does a good job on its own, but you know what? No harm taking extra precautions. You feel me? I pulled out my Crackle medium, and I'm going to pounce it just here and there to see if we can add a little age to this. With this Crackle medium, you want to apply a thick, heavy coat. If you want big cracks, a thinner coat will give you smaller cracks. This is a FolkArt product. I know you can also do this with white school glue. That's supposed to give you the same effect. But I've had this Crackle medium literally for ages, and I still have almost an entire bottle. So we're just going to use this. Now that the Crackle medium is dry, we're going to add some white stripes. I'm using Ceramcoat weight acrylic paint for this, and I'm going to give it 2 coats. They tell you to only use 1 coat over the Crackle medium, but I don't think 1 coat is going to be sufficient, so we're going to go with 2. Yeah, see? You can see some of the red just under that 1 coat, so I'm applying the 2nd coat. Now we're going to pull up our tape to expose our white stripes. They look pretty good, nice and crisp. I created a cardstock frame for the lettering, so I'm going to trace the shape onto the center of the board. But if you're somebody who likes precision, I suggest you use a measuring tape, to get it just where you want it dead center. For me, eyeballing is the best way. My original plan, I was just going to add the text over top of the stripes, but on second thought, I felt it would be more vintage looking and just look better all together with a solid white center. So now I'm going to paint in that center field with white paint. I'm only going to do 1 coat because we're going to come back in and add some red paint to the center as well. And let me tell you, it has been a week, my friends. My husband and I have been passing a cold back and forth for the past week or so. Then on Tuesday morning, when my husband got up for work, he went into the refrigerator to find that it had conked out overnight. Of course, we had just been grocery shopping on Sunday, so yeah. We were able to save some of the things because we have a mini fridge in the kitchen and a deep freezer in the basement. And then I remembered that we had our daughter's mini fridge from her dorm room also in the basement. So we plugged that in and stuffed as much stuff that we could salvage into them. Once he got home from work, we ran to our local Home Depot and bought a new fridge. Thankfully, the Memorial Day appliance sale was still on. I'm truly grateful for that because usually when things like this happen, it would be the day after the sale ends. You know what I'm saying? This time we lucked out. The new fridge will be, well, it would have arrived by the time you guys see this. Just one of those curveballs life throws you. There are worse things, am I right? Anyway, between the cold and the fridge and a couple other things that popped up, that's why there's only one project today. However, I'll have another video out tomorrow. It'll be another carnival project. I'm going to be guest hosting the Summer Inspiration collab with Lolly and Lady Red Crafting, so please check back for that. I'm going to come back in now with some red paint and paint in a long triangle in the very center of the white field. I'm doing this because we're going to be doing a reverse stencil for the lettering, and I want the outline of the letters to be in red. I'll give this 2 coats of red. I used my silhouette to cut out my vinyl lettering, and I believe this font is called Circus. I will double check, and it'll be listed in the description box for you. Anyway, I'm going to burnish on the first half of my lettering, then I'll line up the second part of the word and burnish that on. I only did it this way because I was running out of transfer tape, so I didn't have a piece that was long enough to cover the whole word. You know what I'm saying? With the lettering in place, once again, I'm going to pants over the edges with some Mod Podge to keep the lines nice and crisp. Right, now that the lettering is in place, we're going to paint over the lettering and the entire middle section with more white paint. Crazy, right? Yeah, I'm just using lots of paint in this project. But remember, I am on cold medicine at the time of filming, so take that into consideration. If I had gone with my original design, I would have only needed a couple layers of paint instead of the multitude that I'm currently applying. But you know what? This happens sometimes. Sometimes you change your mind and you gotta do what you gotta do to get where you're going. You feel me? So this part here, we really have to take our time. I'm going to remove this center portion of my lettering. This lettering has a shadow around it, so the center will detach. The tough part is finding the center. I don't want to pull up all the vinyl. I only want to pull up the center portion of the letter. It was a wee bit tricky because, you know, white paint, white vinyl. We're going to grab more of the Mod Podge and pounce over the red sections of the lettering. The reason that I'm doing this is because we want to paint over that red section with blue, but I want the shadow around the letter to remain intact and red. So again, the Mod Podge will keep the lines crisp. I'm going to come in with my Ocean Reef Blue by Ceramcoat and paint in where you see the red. I have to watch not to go past the vinyl that's still around the letter. So hopefully I can execute that without too many blemishes, but we can always do touch-ups if necessary. Please enjoy the musical interlude while I paint in these letters. Just finishing up the first layer of blue. I'm definitely going to have to do a second layer because I can still see streaks of red beneath the blue. The blue paint is dry, so now we can pull up the remaining vinyl to reveal the shadow. I thought this font was just perfect for this sign. It gives you that carnival circus vibe, but it's not overly fussy. I really lucked out here. It looks like I'm not going to have to do any touch-ups. So, right on. I'm going to add some white to the center of the R. I think it'll look better. I don't like that solid red right there. Need something to break it up. So I'm just painting in a little oval. I'm going to add a blue border around the white field. Again, this is Ceramcoat Ocean Reef. I've been using this color blue throughout all of my carnival pieces. Yeah, I really like this blue. Much better than navy for this. I don't know, I think navy's too heavy. This blue's a little more fun. I don't think I mentioned, I'm using a round brush for this. I don't know, like a medium round brush. I just found it gave me a really nice border on this. I want to add some lighting to this, so we're headed outdoors and I'm going to cut out the holes that I need for my lights. First I'm going to drill a pilot hole with the small drill bit, and then I'll switch over to a paddle bit to actually bore the hole. That's my dog Yo-Yo. He's running between my legs and the table because he loves to be in the mix. His real name is Yoshi, but I call him Yo-Yo. After I was done, he was covered in wood chips. Poor wee guy. There we go. There's our hole. Let's head back inside. I'm going to give this an overall light sanding, but I'll focus mostly on the edges and the corners to knock away some of that paint. You know, give it a vintage look. Make it look all beat up. Well, that sanding block has seen better days, so I switched over to a sanding pad from my hand sander. That made things go a lot faster. All those layers of paint, and now I'm knocking it off. I'll wipe off the dust to make sure that my sign is really clean and debris free. Well, it wouldn't be one of my projects if I didn't add some vinyl star stickers, now would it? Because that's how I roll. This definitely needed some stars, because I wasn't real keen on the negative space around the lettering. Also, all my other carnival projects up to now have had my quasar stars, right? So we're being consistent. And because I'm extra, I'm going to add a red drop shadow to the right of the blue stars and a blue drop shadow to the right of the red stars. I'm going to run a very thin line along the right side, keeping it as close to the star as I can. I will ever so lightly sand over the stars. I want to be careful because I don't want to peel them off, but I do want to rough them up a wee bit. With some vintage photograph ink by Tim Holtz, I'm going to dab around the edges to add a little age to the piece. I decided to use ink instead of stain because I felt like it was easier to maintain it just on the very edge. I feel like I had a little more control. I'll add a wee bit around the holes too, because I think that would look a little more authentic. Then I'm going to spray it with a coat of clear matte sealer, and then we'll add the lights. We're using really cool mini Edison lights to light this up. I'll pop the sockets into the holes. And here's our vintage carnival sign, all lit up. I love how this turned out. I think this might be my favorite project in the carnival series so far. Let me know what you think. I want to thank Shelly of Repurpose My Way and Dawn of Shabby Meets Bling for hosting. You'll find links to their channels in the description box, along with a link to the playlist. Please watch everybody's videos and show them some love. Check back tomorrow for the Summer Inspiration collaboration that I'm guest hosting with Lolly and Katie of Lolly D Creations and Lady Red Crafting. I have a really fun project for that tomorrow. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe, and all that good stuff. Stay creative, my friends. Thanks for hanging with me. See you next time. Up all night with Monica.